And so we're recording for posterity and for later use. The other thing is, to our listening audience, if you have questions or comments, please put those in the chat, and I will make every effort to read your text and your questions so we can share with the panelists today. So without further ado, let me just ask our panelists if they could just briefly share with us who they are and where they're at in the state. And so, Angela, let's just start with you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Angie Regan, and I'm the founder and executive director of Welcome Home SIS. SIS stands for not only our sisters in Christ, but it's also an acronym for System Impacted Survivors. We're in Guernsey County, and we're a transitional housing and reentry program for women, for system impacted survivors.
All right. Angela, thank you very much. And let me just say, I know you're a proud OU Bobcat.
Yeah.
and you've been at this work for a while. And I just got to share, her work has been inspiring to me. I found out about your work and the narratives of women's voices as they return. And so the other thing I think we should know is sort of gender specific responses to this issue. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Our other panelist that's joining us today is Ms. Leanne Pardon. And Leanne, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Leanne Pardon. I'm a pastor. I've been pastoring on the west side of Columbus, Franklin County for about 35 years. And I got involved in women's housing coming from incarceration. In 1998, Ronnie Burks asked me to come and speak to victims awareness. And being a victim, you know, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but sitting there listening to them women and knowing that they needed somewhere that they could go, not only stability, but structure and accountability. So we founded the Women of Excellence program, which says, I am becoming the woman that God created me to be. And that was part of our goal, is to get women to where they understand that they are a mighty creation that God created, and God has special plans for them. And God's plan was never, ever denied. It sometimes is delayed. And so the whole process was to get them to a place to where they could begin to love themselves again and see their value. We started in 1998. We founded that home, and for a time, we were able to have the Old Boys and Girls Salesian Center downtown. Mm-hmm. They allowed us to have that, where we housed 50 women at a time. So during all of these years, we have housed a little over 400 women, and our success rate was 73%. I had somebody to look all this up for me. So I'm excited about what this is going to do for us.
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. And let me just say, for all of you who are out there, be careful going to visit Leanne at her institution. She'll walk you to death. I think last time I was out there, we did a 5K and I pulled a hamstring. So thank you, Leanne, for your introduction. And let me just say, again, I'm Mike Davis, and I serve the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction as Religious Services Administrator. So let's go ahead and dive in, ladies, into some questions. I'm just going to go off script. I'm going to throw away the paper that I had. I'm just going to I want us to be conversational and really share with participants today. And Angela, let me just start with you. From your perspective and based on your experience, why is it important for people coming home from incarceration to have stable housing?
Well, for women, we deal with just the women, but we've got the gender specific needs, and more women are going to be in recovery. More women are on the mental health caseload and also have their children.
Oh,
and in order a lot of times to get.
Just 1 second. I need to just do a 20-second timeout. Hey, good morning, everybody. I need you to mute those who are joining us. Would you mute your computer? All right, thank you. All right, Angela, once again.
Thank you. Well, in order for these women to get their children back, I mean, they have to have stable housing. And that's foundational to any successful reentry and any successful life. Any productive citizen has a stable, safe home life. And without the housing, the women, where are they going to go? They're going to go right back to the streets, and that's the same. What got them in trouble in the first place. They're going to go back to the abusive relationships. They're going to go back to the streets and back to the drugs. So yeah, that's the foundation of a successful reentry.
Okay, thank you. It's definitely necessary, like you said. Just a basic security housing provides is necessary. Thank you for that. Leanne, let me ask you this, and I know you shared with us your experiences in providing housing. What is something you feel is needed to help men and women who are returning back to the community from a period of incarceration?
I feel like that they need structure, and that structure comes from program housing and things of that nature that holds them accountable. Like, they're coming from a structured environment of incarceration, and to throw them out there, I say, to the wolves. We are saying that 90% of them are going to come back, and that's the reason why the recidivism rate is so high. They need that structure. So I feel like that the more that and I have to say, faith-based programming gets involved, where we can teach them that accountability. We can teach them how important structure is in their lives, and partnership. You can't, there's no lone rangers today. We cannot be lone rangers. We have got to partner with others. It takes all of us as a community to be able to survive and to serve them. None of us have the capacity to do it all on our own.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Angela, I want to, that kind of reminds me of something you said a little earlier, and it brings up, the issue of balance. What difference have you seen between those women who are able to come home and find stable housing versus those women who are not able to find stable housing? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I'm in Guernsey County. Our town is Byesville. It has a population of about 2,200. It's actually a village. And they have a problem that a lot of them get approved for the vouchers, but then there's no housing, like Administrator Shelley was talking about. There's no housing, and their vouchers are expiring. And when they're able to get into stable housing, it's just that, it sets them on the right path. And I'm not as well as the chaplain here, but we've been only operating for 3 years, and I've only had 30 women, but we have a 0 recidivism rate so far. So, but we've only had 30 people, but that's tremendous. I think, and we do find them housing eventually, but it just, it prolongs the progress. And a lot of times they want to jump right into it, which we don't want them to do that anyway. Like she said, they need structure, and it takes time. So maybe partnering with these other agencies, and HUD especially, and the housing landlords is invaluable, crucial.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned too that the women that are unable to find those stable and safe places, often they get pulled back into their former life. Is that true?
Well, I haven't seen any like on my part.
Okay.
I know that they're living with somebody else, and which that doesn't necessarily mean that they're reoffending, of course, but it's just not a good environment, and it certainly doesn't mean that they won't. Yeah, it's hard when you are trying to strive for independence and you don't have anywhere to go. They can stay here. My program is, as long as they would like to stay, as long as they're following the rules, they can stay as long as they need to. We don't make anybody stay, and we don't kick anybody out. But yeah, they're all wanting to go and live their own life and be independent and get the kids, and it's hard.
Yeah. Well, thank you for what you're doing, and 30 people with safe and stable housing. I just applaud you for all the work that you're doing, what you've done. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Chaplain Pardon, let me ask you this. What do we need to do to get the faith community to be more involved in providing housing for our returning neighbors?
I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to teach them, train them that these women and men too that are coming out are not a threat. these people are coming out, they're wanting to change their lives. And so many of them, Mike, when I've talked to them in the past, they say, well, we're afraid, that what they're going to do. You don't have to be afraid. I mean, I tell folks all the time, I'm more afraid to go to Kroger than to come to work. Okay. So we cannot be afraid of this, and they have to embrace these people right where they are. And I think that that's one of the major problems. They are no longer a number, but they are a name, and we need to address that. We need to see them as people just like you and I. I doubt that there's very many families that are represented out there that has not had someone that has been incarcerated in their family that's now struggling because they're not taken serious in their even in rehabilitation. So churches need to drop that barrier of being afraid. We need to embrace them and have things for them. Get involved with their lives.
Yeah, it sounds like you're suggesting that the church should be the church.
That's right.
The body of Christ. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
One person can be the body by himself.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We need more than just a thumb or a foot. We need everybody, right, to be a part of this and to grasp it. Angela, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit in front of everybody. I know we're on the big screen and we're being broadcast all over, and this will be recorded for millions to see in the future.
Oh, thank you so much.
No pressure, no pressure.
No pressure.
But if you could pick two things for participants to focus on to increase safe and stable housing, what would those things be?
The first thing I think would be that we need to, as a society, we need to decrease the stigma. And it's not as so easy as to, well, we just need to welcome these people, because even, a lot of the churches are, and people don't even realize they're doing it. I've taken women to church with me. They all go to church. But I've taken them to church with me, and they know that when they go with me, that everybody knows that they're coming from prison. And I've had, members of the church, I introduce them, just like they were my daughter or my friend or whoever. And they say, oh, is that one of the girls that, is in the house? And they don't even acknowledge her, and it's just, it's hurtful to the girls. And I've had them go to recovery meetings, the faith-based recovery meetings. And when people are calling me saying they're on drugs, which I know they weren't, they're drug tested. They're not. It's just, they just think that just because they're coming from prison, they're acting in a certain way, that they are on drugs or, back to their old lifestyle or something. And it's just, we need to give them a chance. Everybody deserves a second chance, and sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 or as many as it takes.
Right.
Really.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. And I hope everybody heard that and you were taking notes. I was jotting some things down, Angela, as you were speaking, and I'm glad this is being recorded so we can always go back and hear that wisdom. Thank you. Leanne, I want to.
You said 2 things, but the stigma is going to cover it all. It's going to cover the housing and everything.
Very good. Very good. Let me just hang on a second here. All right, here we go. Got it there. I just want to remind everybody, if not speaking, if you could mute speaking, that would be extremely helpful. All right, I think we got it. All right, let's try this again. So sorry about that. Leanne, I wanted to just ask you, for those who are listening today, how do they get the financial support and the community support to provide housing? A lot of this is going to cost money. You have to have property or location. You have to get the buy-in from people. How do you get a person like yourself, a pastor, and the clergy to buy in to lead the congregation in addressing this issue? And I'll ask Angela after she gets done. I just would ask that same question to you. How did you get the buy-in? How did you get the financial support to do what you're doing? Go
It's
ahead,
not,
Leanne.
it's not easy. I will tell you that everybody, the churches will call and ask us to take somebody from their congregation, or they know somebody that needs help. And they're always wanting you to be willing to help, but I will tell you, there's very few of them that step up and help. One of the things that I find that is very sad is, we know in Matthew it says, when you see, you visited them in prison, and we think that if we go and do a service in prison, we're doing all that we need to do. But we're not making a difference in doing that per se, just to fill the void in our lives. So we have had fundraisers. Our ladies ministry of our church has done fundraisers to help with the houses. We've done a couple of different type of events that brought funding in. Several years ago, I contacted 300 churches within Columbus and asked them to let us be one of their benefactors for missions. And I got response. Out of 300, I got 2. And so it's not easy to do. And also, not to give people a false hope, but if you're in this for the money, you better find something else, because there's no money involved. Well, you're doing it as a ministry, and it is solely ministry. All the years that I have done this, I have never been paid. And so it's a mission to me. It's a mission. So there is some funding out there grant wise, but you have to get on board with those. And I know that you sent me a couple and several ones we have received from some of the local banks. I will tell you that some of the local banks are some of the greatest ones. They will take your cause and they'll use it as a sponsorship. So there's not, church-wise, not a lot of people get involved.
Yeah. It's good to know that we can turn to the banking community. And it I don't know about the rest of you all listening, but it's a little disappointing that only 2 churches out of 300 would respond. Yeah. Angela, let me ask you the same question. How are you able to sort of support this work, and any advice for other people who are trying to do the same thing?
Well, you got to pray. You got to pray. I constantly pray. And I get mostly grants, and we're lucky enough to get at least $25,000 to $30,000 a year for grants. The banks, she's right, the banks, People's Bank and Huntington Bank support us. Presbyterian Women, they do. I wrote a grant to them, and they have supported us too. But yeah, as far as the churches go, I mean, we sometimes take up collections, or the churches will take up a collection, but other than that, yeah, it's not too much there, or they see, I mean, and I even had a church that the women, they saw the women, and it, and they were going to them and saying certain things about, because they didn't want to follow the rules, basically. But then they just didn't want to support the organization anymore because the women, had relapsed or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's just private donations and grants is where we get our funding. And that's not a lot. I mean, we don't get any government funding. We just signed on, we were level 2 recovery house as well. But the Adams Board helps us out when we have a woman that is, in recovery. So she can be coming, because the 2 qualifications for the program are she has to have a criminal record and be in recovery. So she could technically be coming from an inpatient rehab as well. Because we're trying to open, the doors for as many women that need housing. Because I've got a lot of room. I always have room. And if I don't have room, I'll make room. So I don't want to deny anybody, because I mean, even when I have room. So in the CTP program, that's something that we were just made aware of, and the community transitions program. So we're just working with, you guys kind of on that, and they're helping us out, and that's basically it. But the churches need to step up. I will be the body of Christ.
Yeah. Very good. And mentioning that the body of Christ has to be more involved. Faith communities have to be more supportive. I'm reminded of a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., who said it, that the faith community needs to be the moral guardians of our communities. And so there are things that we need to step up and do. Angela, in keeping with that comment about the body of Christ, what else needs to be done in this area that you just can't do alone? And I want to ask both of you that question. Angela, after you answer, then Leanne, if you would pick that same thing up. So what else needs to be done, Angela, in this area that you just can't do alone?
We need volunteers. I mean, I'm sure I speak for every nonprofit out there. We need volunteers. And the body of Christ is not all, one talent. It's, you got the arms, you got the legs. Everybody's good at something, and not everybody's good at everything, or, just one talent. So, I mean, the volunteers, I need board members. If you want to be on the board, Mike or Chaplain.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. We all have to be in it together, right? We all need to be supportive. Chaplain Pardon, what do you think about that? What else needs to be done that you just can't do alone?
Well, we partner with Impact for them helping the women to do resumes, to get themselves involved, in some kind of employment or something of that nature. So I'm grateful for Impact being a part of that. But we also, I agree with Angela, mentorship is a big thing. I can't spend all that time with every woman, and so we need mentors that will give of their time, and not just once. These women need somebody active in their lives all the time. They need encouragement from them. They need somebody that will give them that hand up. It doesn't have to be a handout. A hand up is just as vital. They need that. They also need acceptance. They know that they've been incarcerated. They know that they have been an addict. They don't need somebody reminding them of that all the time, but they need somebody that will be an encourager, that will help them to see their value and their productivity. Give them a pat on the back. That's one of the major things. And helpers. I don't know about Angela, but it's hard to get 5 women to 3 different appointments every day. And some of them, I don't want them to go on the bus. I'll just be honest with you. I don't want them on the bus. So, we need people like that.
Yeah. She was talking about like the transportation and stuff. When we try to pick up the women from prison, because if, they put them on the bus, there's predators that are waiting at the Columbus bus station for these women, and they can spot them a mile away, in their state, sweatsuits. They spot them a mile away. That that gate pay, and it is sad that we have people like that. But I try to catch them right when they come out of the gate, but I can't always be there. I'm transporting from the prison. Then I've got the women in the house that are not being taken care of or being looked after, and then also the J-pay, because we do outreach, or I do the outreach myself. I mean, that's pretty simple stuff, but it's time consuming. And, we need volunteers for that. I mean, it's something. I mean, the body of Christ, everybody's good at something. We'll find something for you.
That's right. Very good. Thank you, ladies. And you guys sort of touched on this, but I want to just have you explore a little more, talking about the community. Now, working for DRC, Chaplain Pardon, as you mentioned, and Ronette Burks-Trousdale mentioned, all the things that are going on inside. And so we have a lot going on inside, but we're lacking that same level of commitment outside, or at least the same sort of responsiveness outside. What are some of the things that the community can do to help support this effort? What kind of role should they play? And Chaplain Pardon, I'll start with you, but Angela, I'd really like for you to weigh in on that same question. What is our role out here in the community?
We need to be resourceful. I know, that there is the reentry programs that are going on, that, that the incarcerated are being told of what's available. But we need some kind of resource that will help these folks when they get out. I was just sharing with somebody the other day. I can remember a time when nobody, could get the $7, and that's back years ago, to even get an ID. Well, today we have some resources. There's the Join, there's Compass program. There's several churches that will give them a voucher for that, but nobody is getting all this together, Mike, so that these folks can have this available to them. And once it's available, they've got to know exactly what to ask for, because nobody's just going to go out here and say, hey, what do you need? Another thing is they need to know where these community clothing banks are. They need to know where the community food banks are. Some of them are not coming out to these resources. So there needs to be a resource bank that's set up somehow that these folks can get to. And we, as running these houses and things, these things need to be available to us and updated and given to us. It's hard for us to go out and search for these things, but if there was a way that they would be automatically sent to us, emailed to us, nobody knows what that would mean.
All right, thank you. Angela, let me just ask you the same question. What role does the community play? What do we need from those listening and from those neighbors and members of the faith community? What do we need from them to help us?
Well, we do. I mentioned the Presbyterian women earlier, but we do partner with Harvest Christian Fellowship, and they have the Harvest House where these women can go, and they supplied a lot of this stuff for this, the first house that we had, as far as like toasters, vacuums, things like that. And when the women, every new woman is released, we can take her shopping there, and she can get her clothes, and because they don't always like what I pick out for them, go figure. So they can pick out their own clothes. But I mean, yeah, and resources and just acceptance. We need help. We can't do it alone. And I think acceptance is the biggest thing. It's hard to find the resources, though. Like she said, we pay for their IDs, and it was hard to get their Social Security cards because of COVID and everything was closed. But they're opening back, or not everything, but the Social Security office was closed. So we're getting that, all together. But we pay for their IDs and things. But that's an expense, and when you're just on, private donations and a few grants, then, that $10 adds up. But they are, they can trade their prison ID. And because like she said, they're not a number anymore. We want to give these women back their dignity, and nobody wants to go to a job interview with a prison ID. You want to get your ID, and we're happy to pay for that. So,
Yeah, thank you, ladies both. Really quick, I just want to sort of do a commercial for Relink, and that was mentioned earlier. But I want to share with everybody listening that Relink is only as good as the information that is submitted to it. And so if you've not put in information about your clothing resources or housing resources or our food ministries, I would encourage you to go to relink.org and register your organization, so that when Angela and Leanne are looking up resources for their clients, they're able to direct them to some of those resources. Let me ask you another question in Dan Rather mode here. Remember him, Dan Rather?
Tell my age now. Yours too.
Yeah. So what are you guys personally, and I'll just let whoever like to jump in on this, what are you guys doing to help expand safe and affordable housing for people coming home to prison? I know what you're currently doing, but it sounds like the need is so great that we have to expand. Angela, you mentioned earlier, sometimes you might not have a bed for somebody. Leanne, I know that's an ongoing challenge. What are you up to expand affordable housing, safe housing, and what do you recommend we do? What can I do to help expand housing for our neighbors?
You know, Mike, one of the things, and as you said that, it come back to my mind, but one of the things that I think that we are lacking in, and it's such a sad thing, is I call it forever housing for our elderly that is coming out of prison. We have women that are coming out that are in their 60s, and they're scared, you know. And if, you know, wouldn't it be an awesome thing that one of these boarded up apartment buildings that has maybe even 5 to 7 or 8 units in it could be used for forever housing for these ladies? And 3 women come to in particular to my mind from ORW that I feel like will be out, and one from DCI in the next couple of years, and that is their biggest concern. They have no family left. They've been there 40 plus years and they have no family left. Forever housing, you know, something that they can go to, that they don't have to worry about having to move. You know, our program is 6 months to a year. But they need something that goes beyond that, you know. And we got men the same way. I mean, I hate to say it, but you know, we lack in that area drastically to offer something to these folks.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. Go ahead and launch into that too. What are you doing to expand
First
housing?
of all,
What can we do?
can you guys imagine being terrified to leave prison?
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's awful for us, you know, on the outside to think of. I mean, these women and men are terrified to leave prison because that's where they're safe at now, and there's nowhere for them to go. We recently expanded. We went from a 1,000 square foot double wide to a 5,800 square foot home. And the funding was not really there at first, but I mean, I've got to have it, you know. So I mean, I'm just doing whatever I can. I also wanted to thank CareSource because we did get a grant from them this year. So I know that that's the sponsor of this program. So yeah, I mean, and I would like to work more with HUD. If we could do, I mean, like Leanne, I've got the independent housing. I was going to buy several houses for the forever homes or the independent housing for these women to go after they maybe completed this program here. But it still would be like just 1 or 2 women per home. And HUD doesn't do the shared housing. And I think we all need to get on the same page with everything. The HUD office here was telling me that they didn't get those 70,000 vouchers, and it's some of the caseworkers approve felons, some of them don't. Some of them say, well, it can't be a drug charge. Some of them say, well, if they've been through treatment. So, you know, and you never know. The woman fills out the application, and it really just depends on who's looking at her application, whether she gets approved or not. And that's not right, and it's sad, but that's how it is in this county. And I guess they were overlooked, or I was told, with the 70,000, but I couldn't take them anyway because it's a shared housing. They share the refrigerator and the stove and the kitchen, basically, in the common living area. But for right now, I mean, that's all they got, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Leanne, for sharing. You know, one of the things that I think about with all of this, and you all have alluded to it and really shared with us, the need for the community to respond, the need for churches, mosques, temples, people of the community of faith to respond. And I wondered if, and I'll let whoever would like to lead off on this question, go ahead and take it and pose it to both of you. But what are some of the essential connections? So for somebody getting into this work of providing housing, what are some of the essential partnerships that you believe someone would need to make to be successful in this work?
Well, I go ahead, Angela.
I was going to say, like, your county, you know, the ODRC. I mean, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for helping us and supporting us. But the county also needs to be on board, like the sheriff's department, the probation officers, you know, all of this. And there's a lot of these women that get released from the ODRC, from prison. they have warrants. A lot of them have outstanding warrants, and it's not settled while they're in prison. So the county will pick them up. And then when the county picks them up, it's like then they lose their gate pay. They can't get their stuff, whatever stuff they've accumulated during prison, which is just letters, sentimental stuff, unless they have an address to ship it to, and they have to, they pay for that. But then the county just like drops them. I mean, just sets them out. They usually get released on their own recognizance. And then they're released, and then we have to, we do drive, 2 or 3 hours wherever they're at to go get them. And I'm lucky if I get that call. A lot of these women, they don't ever call me, and I never hear from them again. But I mean, I just praise God that we have gotten, several calls from the women that are in the county, and we can, try to help them. But yeah, we need to support the community and the government. The sheriff's department, the probation officers, and things like that, and other nonprofits in the area. The other facilities, they're not facilities, the ones that provide the mental health. Kids, I mean, it's like it's sad also that it's like it seems like it's a competition in the nonprofit game, and it shouldn't be. We're all on the same team. We really are. So just yeah, let's just be a team.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's good. Thank you so much. And like you said, there's too much competition and too much being siloed off. Thank you for that, Leanne. I just posed the same question to you. To be successful in this area, if we're just starting out, what are some of the essential connections we have to make in the community?
I agree with Angela with, know your probation department. Well, introduce yourself. That's one thing that I did early on is I introduced myself to the probation department, and they got on board with Women of Excellence. And then also, know your insurance liabilities with your housing, because, if they don't allow you to take sex offenders, they can shut you down. So know what you're doing, make sure that you have researched all of those things. We partnered with Lower Lights. Lower Lights is a one-stop shop. They are a dentist, a doctor, an eye doctor, mental health. And so I went and talked to them and got our ladies involved with them, that as soon as they get out within 2 weeks, they're taken there so that their medication is not stopped, and those kind of things, and I agree with Angela about them picking them up and taking them someplace else. I literally got a call from Kentucky that I had 2 hours to get there to get this woman, or they was going to put her back in jail. I couldn't get there in 2 hours, but I called somebody else, and they called them and told them they had to hold her and let me get her. So, we have a lot of emotional ties with these women, and these men. So we have to, we need whatever connection we can get, but know your community and what they expect out of you. Do your inspections, your fire inspections, and all of those things. Show them that you're on the up and up. Be transparent with your community.
Yeah, thank you. It's like you said, we all have to be engaged and involved. We all have to recognize the significance of the need for safe and stable housing, and the consequences of not having it are fairly dire. We're fortunate today. I see one of our colleagues, Leanne, on here, Miss Wainwright, and some other names I recognize. I want to give our audience a chance. If you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat, and I'll work it in somehow. Leanne, go ahead. You were about to say something.
One more thing that's really important, and I'm sure that Angela has run into this, but wherever you are housing these folks, these ladies and men are so important to us, but know that they are in a community. I personally walked my community, shared with them what we were doing in those houses, in those communities, and gave them my personal phone number, that if they saw anything out of line or out of character, that they would call me. And I'm telling you, I had the greatest eyes in my neighborhood. I had people that they'd say, hey, you might as well get over here. You got somebody going out the back door and there's a car waiting on them, and just different things. And they helped me to police my ladies, so I was grateful. But get your neighborhood involved. Let them know that you're not there to cause problems, but you want them to be a help.
Right. I just want to say, Mike, I take the girls to the city council meetings. They meet the mayor, they meet the chief of police.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't want to meet the chief of police, but hey, he's a good guy. They get registered to vote. You don't have to vote, but you're going to be registered if you want to vote. Just things like that. I introduce them to the pastors and people at church, and just get them out there. And we had, the last house that we lived at, we had a gala last year, and I handed out invitations. I put one on her door, our neighbor. And a couple of days later, I said, did you get the invitation? She said, oh, that was from you. I'm like, yeah, you didn't know what we do over here? She said, no, I never even see anybody there. And it's like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You don't even know that we're here, and everybody else in the community is causing an uproar, a disruptive or whatever, you know what I mean? But we get up and go to work just like everybody else.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you. So earlier on, Angela mentioned the issue of stigma. And, the state of Ohio has a series of commercials, Beat the Stigma. And they also have one of my all-time favorites, Don't Live in Denial, Ohio, right? And so in keeping with those thoughts, what are some of the myths that people have about men and women coming back from prison? What do we need to stop doing in this area relative to our returning neighbors?
They have that. It's the myth that they want to go right back to prison. They don't want to go back to prison. They're not coming home to get in trouble again or commit, crimes. That's not what, people, and all of these women that I talk to when they're incarcerated, I talk to them via JPay, and sometimes we interview, with a case manager, but, they have really, really good hearts, and they want to make a change. They want to change their lives. They want everything, to be different. They're willing to work for it. But yeah, the stigma of like people, criminals, that's a bad name too. Criminals or offenders. We constantly are trying to change the language, like we were formerly incarcerated. Now I'm trying to say, system impacted survivors, because they survived the system, and they want to continue surviving, and their children are survivors too, and so. It's just this stigma. Yeah, I don't know how to break it, but it's just something that's been going on for generations and generations, and we keep trying to change the language, but it's still the same thing, really, until we get people to get with the program. And I don't really know anybody that's not a criminal. How do you define a criminal? Somebody who's broke the law. Has anybody ever sped or not wore their seatbelt? That's a crime, right? So we're really all criminals. Unless, it depends on who's defining the law. So, and I think, a lot of people will admit that I know, I could be right where these women are myself personally. I could be there. I'm by the grace of God. I'm not, and I'm able to do what I'm doing for the ones that were, but I'm no different.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, Angela. And Michelle mentioned, there are biases we have against people who have been incarcerated and are coming home, and we're very judgmental, which is odd, because especially from the faith perspective, we shouldn't be. Leanne, what are some of the myths that you've dealt with, and what are some things that we're doing we need to stop doing, or what else do we need to do in this area?
Mike, one of my biggest pet peeves is somebody will say, oh, are they one of those people? One of those people? What's one of those people? Right now, right then, you're saying that you don't believe that they can change. And I've heard people say, well, once a thief, always a thief, or once an addict, always an addict. That is not true. And I agree with Angela, but by the grace of God, I could have been any one of these women. So we need to stop that. we need to think, about things. Several years ago when I was at Franklin pre-release with the women, I was walking across the yard and two of the women were arguing, and just for a minute my mind went there, and man, the Holy Spirit said, one moment can change your life. Take two, think it through. And now I have it on the wall here at the chapel, and every one of us has had that one moment that we could have acted out of that moment. But thank God we did think about it and we stopped ourselves. Well, not everybody's had the opportunity to do that. We need to stop calling them these people. They are a child of God, just like we are, created for the greater purpose. And I have to sometimes, I'll see somebody that's reoffended, and even me being a chaplain here at Madison, they'll come in my office and I'll say, what are you doing here? And they said, well, I just got caught up in it. And I sit them down right then and I say, listen, let's backtrack and see what caused that. Don't sit there and judge them. Let's try to find out what keeps causing them to do those same acts again.
And when we say that their thieves are always thieves, then we're limiting God too. If we say
right.
For change, we're putting a limit on our God. And I mean, another myth is women aren't criminals. I was shocked when I was a graduate student and I started researching this. It's like women are the fastest growing prison population nationwide and in Ohio. They're being incarcerated at twice the rate of men. And, before I actually studied mass incarceration, but I had no idea that it was women, because they're almost like a hidden population. You don't think about it. Women as, criminals you put a woman in prison, they're mothers. How do you do that? But it's horrible what's going on in our society, but we just got to be more accepting when they get out. Women need their babies, so we got to give them that that dignity of becoming a mother again, and if they are able to, and just welcome them back. Yeah.
Angela, this is fantastic. You mentioned something that was actually on my mind to talk about, and that was sort of the incarceration trends, that women are being incarcerated at unprecedented rates. And it brings up the issue of children. And there have been several studies conducted in the past that if you're a child of an incarcerated parent, the likelihood of you experiencing incarceration is increased. And I just wondered, in your experiences, how important is providing stable housing? How important is it to the role of motherhood in our community?
That would help us break the cycle, Mike. I mean, we've got to, it's a generational trauma that happens to these kids that when their parents are incarcerated and are incarcerated. And there's only 2 women, I believe, that I can think of right offhand that didn't have a parent or a mother that was incarcerated or in active addiction. 2 women out of the 30. That's substantial, so they ended up in prison. And some of these women, they go like, oh, I liked it at DCI. It's like, what do you mean you liked it? We don't want you to like it, and they have kids that, some of them do have kids and they're incarcerated, they're in jail, they're continuing the cycle. But with the young kids, we got to break the cycle. It's sexual trauma, then it's self-medication, and then it's incarceration, and then it just goes on to affect the kids.
Yeah, thank you. Leanne, you want to weigh in on that?
Yes, I was just sitting here thinking of when I was the chaplain at ORW, that we had generations. We had at one time a mother and a daughter serving time at the same time. And I think about that, and I think about, that how that the community needs to embrace family. That's one of the things that we're not seeing right now. We're not seeing a lot of communities embracing family activities. They're either just embracing the children or they're just embracing the parent. But we need interaction between our children and the parents, and it to be in a way that they are being taught how to be those good parents, and those children, growing up to be mighty and powerful, adults. And it can only come with proper training. A lot of those that are in prison today will tell you that they never really had a hands-on mother or father. They were passed down from mother to grandmother to aunt or whatever, and there was never a constant in their life. So somebody has to step up and show some consistency in what we're doing today. And I think that that's a major problem with our parenting today. We're doing Malachi Dads here at Madison, and I'm telling you, these men are finding out that anybody can be a father. Okay, but it takes a real man to step up and be a dad. And it's the same way with the mothers, and I have to commend ORW for their nursery and toddler programs, because they are awesome. But these women didn't have that outside. So we need parenting skills. We're at a loss for parenting skills today.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that and talking about the dads, because the housing situation affects fatherhood also.
It does.
The ripple effects related to employment. I mean, if you don't have an address, how do you get hired? And so there are all these ripple effects that we see. And so I guess, ladies, as we sort of get to the point where we're getting ready to wind down, let me ask you this. You talked about the possibility of finding grant funding out there. Where do we look to find grants to support housing efforts for men and women returning back to the community?
I have a partner, Serving USA. They're out of California, and they're the partners. It's not just about funding for them. So they've given us like marketing, a marketing resource, somebody that will give us training and help us with the marketing. And so there's a website that I have a membership to that they have. Well, they have a membership to that I go on and I look for grants. And I write proposals, and I've never done anything like this in my life before. It's crazy, but God's thrown this on me, and it's like He doesn't call the qualified, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. So yeah, like and I just the banks and things like Leanne said, are a great resource. We have a Get Fresh Garden that it seems like everybody's wanting to fund. This idea of women in transition getting learning self-sustainability, but a lot of people don't want to fund a transitional house, just like you got to fund the house to fund the garden. So, but
yeah, thank you for sharing. And Leanne, what has been your experience in the hunt for funds?
Well, the Columbus Foundation is one here in Columbus that, but that's, I think, once a year they do that. And then there's also, there was a reentry program here, but they have since, just went up, they're not even doing anything anymore. So it's really hard sometimes to find grants. As I said before, sometimes they'll pass through ODRC and you guys will pass them on to us, and we do that. But Angela said something right there too. You got to know how to write a grant, and you've got to have somebody on board that has that capability. And I will tell you, I am not a grant writer. I'm a pastor and I'm a chaplain, but I cannot write grants. So, the two that we have gotten, somebody outside wrote those, and they were very good at it, So during COVID, one of the major things that I saw was a lot of people just stopped doing any kind of nonprofit work, because everything else was needy. So hopefully we'll see that rebound in 2023, and we'll begin to see more grants available. Faith-based grants are one of the hardest to find, though. I was turned down on two because I will not compromise what we are. We are a faith-based program, and I'll not say that we're not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, ladies, for sharing this. Now, as we get ready to wrap up, I want to remind our participants, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And also, if you'd like to talk to our panelists post-workshop, you can find them through Whova and communicate to them via that platform, which is one of my favorite parts of this platform, is the ability for us to connect. You all both talked about the importance, the priority that this needs to have, but you've also talked about how difficult this work can be. And I just want to ask you just bluntly, is it worth it? Has it been worth it? Both of you collectively have done this for a long time. And I just wanted to ask you, has it been worth it?
When you get that one girl, that one woman, it has to be one. Jesus left the 99 to go for the one, right? So, I mean, just even one woman. And I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, it's a lot. It changes things. And yeah, I mean, it's been worth it. I'm so stressed out a lot of the times. I cry a lot. I'm poor. There's no money in this, like Leanne said. But at the end of the day, we're changing lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've had women that, they go to church, like I said, with me, and they've never even been inside of a church, or, they get saved for the first time. And that's tremendous to me. That's really, that makes it all worth it.
All right. Thank you, Angela. Leanne, what about you? Has it been worth it?
I like what CeCe Winan says. She said, it may not be easy, but it is worth it. When we get to heaven, we're going to see many of those that we have had an impact on. And that's going to be that's my goal. I'm not in this for anything else, but to see women changed and to see their lives, be productive, to see their families back together. One of the greatest things, Mike, I ever seen was one of the ladies from ORW. She got out, she was with us for a year. She was fighting to get her children back. And after she graduated from our program and she got a home, one Sunday I looked back at church, and there she sat with all 5 of her children in church. You talk about somebody ecstatic. I was ecstatic, because that let me know that that woman had truly changed, truly. Or to have this Sunday, I have the privilege, as I am a pastor outside of here, one of the women that was at ORW, that God has totally changed her life, will be speaking at our church. God has called her into the ministry, and he said, you be the first door that opens to her. So this Sunday she will be preaching. I feel like her mama, excited, to be able to do this. So as long as we keep our excitement and our enthusiasm about what we're doing, God has promised us that we will be successful.
All right. Pastor Pardon, thank you. Those are encouraging words, and you've reminded us to not grow weary in well doing,
Right.
for in due season. And as we get ready to conclude here, I promise to end on time. A lot of times I'm the guy that comes late and goes over time, but I'm going to try to wrap up right on time, so everybody can participate in these other great offerings. But before we do, let me just ask you all if you just have a closing comment for those who are listening virtually, for those who are at the physical locations. If you have just some closing thought about why we all need to care about housing and safe and stable housing for everybody.
Mike, I just want to say this: if we give them stable housing, then they're not on the streets and they're not committing crime. That makes everybody safer, the whole neighborhood. Sometimes people don't think about that.
All right. Yeah, there's a benefit in it for us too, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean the neighborhood. Yeah.
Chaplain Pardon.
Remember that these folks that are coming from incarceration and they're going through these programs, one day they could be your neighbor. So invest in them as you would want your neighbor to be.
All right. I think there's a parable about being a good Samaritan,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end, I think the Lord says, "Go and do likewise." Well, everybody, it's been a pleasure to be in this space with you. I want to thank our panelists, Angela Regan and Leanne Pardon. Thank you so much. God
Thank you,
bless
Mike.
each
Thank
and
you,
every
Russ.
one of you. Enjoy the rest of today's session. Take care, everybody.
Good seeing you guys.